Hey YouTube, this is Southern Purple One. I gave you a homework assignment. It was to watch the video on the stories of the Great Depression. And some of you probably didn't watch it, and that's fine. I'm going to give you a very quick review of that video, just so you find out what was important then and what happened then. In 1929, the stock market crashed, and that was really the start of the Great Depression. The Great Depression lasted many, many, many years. It was just not a very short period of time. When President Roosevelt got inaugurated in 1933, there had been years of people suffering, not just a little bit of suffering, people without jobs, people that lost their homes, people that were hungry. Physical starvation occurred in the United States. People went hungry. So years and years and years of pain. March of 1933, the banks shut down. All the banks shut down. Some of them never opened up. So if you had money in there, you lost everything. At this point, it was about 25% unemployment, and prices and production of goods and services plummeted by a third. So prices going down a third is definitely deflation. So we need to watch that. We need to remember that. So if we have another crisis we go into, right now we have inflation. We could go into a period of deflation because people didn't have money, and whoever had a product sold it at a lot less than they did during the 1920s when the 20s were roaring. Some of the people, I'm just going to have some bullet points. One of the guys mentioned that the houses they lived in, a lot of them, you could look through the flooring and see the ground itself. Today we have much better housing, so that's not really a comparison. Today with our modern conveniences, our houses are definitely more insulated. But the people back then had an environment, they probably were colder in the winter, hotter in the summertime, but they were a stronger people. One of the people said people worked hard. They didn't know really the Depression was going on because they had a large family, and they did whatever it took to keep the family going. Nowadays, if we had that type of turmoil and problems, how many parents would say, forget this, I'm out of here, and leave the family, leave the kids? They do it today. So I don't think our family structure today is even close to what the family structure during the 1930s were. So that's going to cause us additional problems. Also, back then people lived in areas that they had community. Today, there is no community. People move and move and move and move. So Roosevelt came up with a New Deal, 15 laws that really created more government control. Government at this point said, we're going to take care of Americans. A lot of people nowadays look back and say, oh, that's socialism and it's bad. And it is bad, it's totally bad. But if you had gone years and years and years without a job, without proper food, without proper shelter, you're going to accept whatever the government is going to give you to alleviate your suffering. So we need to put ourselves in their shoes. That's why a lot of people from that time loved Roosevelt, because he provided jobs, he provided assistance, he provided a calming voice. We know that calming voice was just more socialism, more government control. We got to add in the Dust Bowl, where farmers suffered terribly, and that just made more suffering for the Depression. One of the persons said they had a shack, literally a shack in their yard, so migrant families traveling back and forth can stay in it. I don't know if this was done out of charity or if it was done out to increase some revenue, you know, charge them a small amount of money for this shack, and it was a shack. I expect shacks to come back during the next Great Depression. Another story of a little girl only having one dress. Her mama getting some material that was sort of like free cheese that we had recently. It was material that was given to workers as part of their pay, and her mom made her a second dress. She went to school. People made fun of her. Her classmates made fun of her because they knew that was government cloth, but she didn't care because she had two dresses. That really sticks out. How many pieces of clothing do we have nowadays? People were short clothing in the Great Depression, could not afford them. Clothes were holy. Shoes. If you don't take anything out of this, take shoes. You better have good pairs of shoes. Probably back then their leather shoes were not as comfortable as ours, but they were probably made to a higher quality. You could go out and buy cheap shoes today that they fall apart within months. So look at your shoes, biggest thing. Another story was Blackberries. Blackberries are free down in the South. They're everywhere during certain months of the year. You can go out and pick as many as you want. So they would use large sugar flour and make a blackberry pie. Probably the amount of sugar they use is so much different than today. Today, when my wife makes a blackberry pies are sort of tart. You need a lot of sugar to make it taste good. Some days, that's all the people had to eat was a blackberry pie. Let that sink in. Charity started then. I think the guy was from San Francisco, and at first a few of the families would get the box of food from the charities, and then eventually pretty much everyone was getting that box as the Depression. So don't let your pride get in the way and say, nah, I don't want it. If you need it, you need it. There's no way around it. Another thing I took out of this video was money was very, very, very tight. A little bit of money could get you things. A few people said the way they survived was they raised their own food. They had a garden, they had chickens, they had pigs. They had the ability to feed themselves. One guy said, yeah, we didn't have much clothes because we didn't have money, but we had full bellies. One of the stories was money in the bank. They had a large amount of money in the bank, and to me, I don't know what large amounts. They had money in the bank, and the banks shut, they lost it all. So they went from, being okay in society and in life to a few years later, both of the parents losing their jobs. They lost all their money because the bank closed. Moral story is, make sure you have enough in your bank to cover your expenses, but have it somewhere else too. Thing I took out of it also was people didn't have a lot of things. I mean, one guy said we moved around a lot, but it was no big deal. You just load the car up and go. Today we have excessive amounts of stuff in our lives. People loved Roosevelt. I took out of that movie, and I've taken out of history, because Roosevelt helped people out. People gave up some of their freedoms. People gave up a lot of things because of this. So if we go into another economic conflict or problem, what are people going to give up then? Are they going to give up all their freedoms just for a job? And nowadays people don't want a job. They don't want a job. What they're asking for is free checks. Give me my check. Give me my check. And that's going to happen. So I'm taking out of this movie, you better stock shoes. You better be able to grow your own food. And the masses will take your freedoms away. We as preppers are a very small group of people that are prepared for that economic collapse. But the masses are not, and they're going to willingly give more freedoms away to keep their bellies full, to keep entertained. So, keep studying history. You learn from history, and then you can use it to apply it today. Thanks for watching.